TikTok a Sino-American tech split. The tech industry is dividing. For the past few years, countless predictions have been made that the global technology industry will suffer a painful rupture because of tensions between America and China. Real damage has been surprisingly hard to spot. Last year, Apple made over $100 million of sales a day in China, while Huawei reported record revenues despite the American campaign to cripple it. Investors have packed into tech companies' shares, buoyed by the prospect of new technologies such as 5G and a pandemic that is forcing billions of customers to spend more time and money online. Judged by sales, profits, and shareholder returns, it has been a golden era for American and Chinese tech. The industry now has a closure market capitalization of $20 trillion and accounts for a quarter of the world's stock market value. Yet, if you examine the events of the past 2 weeks, you can sense the split that is about to come. On July 6, Michael Pompeo, American Secretary of State, said that the administration was considering banning TikTok, a Chinese-run app that is widely popular in the West. This followed India's decision a week earlier to prohibit it, and 58 other Chinese apps after lengthy battles between soldiers in Himalayas. Britain and France are considering sliding Huawei from their 5G networks. Between July 6 and 7, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Twitter all said they will stop cooperating with Hong Kong authorities for the time being because of the industry of China's brutal security law there. And SMIC, China Aspiring Semiconductor Champion, just said it will raise $7 billion in state support listed in Shanghai and delisted from New York last year. The proceeds will be used to supply China's homegrown chipmaking capacity. The split is happening at two vocal cities. The American and Chinese software and internet universities are heading at light speed towards total separation. They were never particularly connected. American software firms made just 3% of their sales in sale last year, and China has long kept its internet users isolated from the world. The bill for shutting down shop and finding substitute products is usually low. TikTok creates few jobs and pays little or no tax in American or Indian. So the main cost of banning it is setting teenagers. Likewise, Facebook and the other firms taking a stand in Hong Kong do little or no business in China. Two important exceptions have been Microsoft Office software and especially Google system of apps like Gmail and Maps, found on Chinese-made phones sold worldwide. American blacklisting of Huawei has cut off the world's second biggest phone seller from some of the world's most popular apps. China handset firms are racing to develop an alternative. American and Chinese software world has thus quickly become entirely separate universes. Hardware is moving much more slower. That is because it is more globally integrated and involved $1 trillion of physical plant and $400 billion of inventories. Later this year, Apple will launch a new 5G handset that will still rely on the same vast manufacturing cluster in China that is used 5 years ago. Even so, the tectonic planes are shifting because of a new set of American restrictions on the use of chip-making tools put in place in May. Huawei may run out of stock of the specialist chips in early 2021 and will have to scramble to find an alternative. That will be cumbersome and costly. The SMIC capital raising showed that China intends to create a chip giant on a pair with Intel on Taiwan's TSMC, although it will take years to do so. If Britain and France both eventually ditch Huawei, they will shift to use Nokia and Ericsson in their network, which will be expensive and take several years. If the splitting now seems inevitable, there will be some surprise. One is how the two tech forms of influence are drawn. American policymakers tend to assume the world will use Silicon Valley products. Plenty of countries may ally with China tech system or hedge their bets. India enforced towards both American and Chinese digital firms and hopes to build up its own champions. Although it cannot compete yet in hardware, another surprise how much the split could cost. The global listed hardware industry has annual expect of $600 billion, much of which will need to be replicated. Plenty of key firms, including Apple and TSMC, are equally dependent on America, and China and have no clear path to cope with a deeper divide. The tech split is usually underway. Do you assume it will happen safely?